Hi everybody and welcome to Bloop. Today we're going to be discussing Defy the Night by Brigid Kemmerer. It's hard to say her name. As you'll notice again, Laura and I are in the studio together, and studio time with Laura and I is a little bit different. And as we've read the same book, and we're going to get into deep discussion about it, and there will be spoilers. But we'll let you guys know before we get into the spoiler stuff. So let's hop right in.
Yeah, let's hop right in. So Defy the Night is a young adult fantasy. And synopsis, here we go. The kingdom of Kandala is on the brink of disaster. Rifts between sectors have only worsened since a sickness began ravaging the land, and within the royal palace, the king holds a tenuous peace with a ruthless hand. Especially his, what's it called? We'll get there in a minute, sorry. I'm like blanking on Harrison.
King Harrison?
No,
Corrick?
King's Justice.
The King Justice.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a waste of time. I'm sorry. King Harrison was thrust into power after his parents' shocking assassination, leaving the younger Prince Corrick to take on the brutal role, here we go, of King's Justice. The brothers have learned to react mercilessly to any sign of rebellion. It's the only way to maintain order when the sickness can strike anywhere, and the only known cure, an elixir made from the delicate moonflower petals, is severely limited. Out in the wilds, apothecary apprentice Tessa Cade is tired of seeing her neighbors die, their suffering ignored by the unyielding royals. Every night, she and her best friend Wes risk their lives to steal moonflower petals and distribute the elixir to those who need it most. But it's still not enough. As rumors spread that the cure no longer works and sparks of rebellion begin to flare, a particularly cruel act from the King's Justice makes Tessa desperate enough to try the impossible, sneaking into the palace. But what she finds upon her arrival makes her wonder if it's even possible to fix Kandala without destroying it first.
Yes.
Okay.
So
right.
Laura and I read this with our book club.
Yes.
And we loved it. So do you want to do?
We can do this first. We normally do the content rating, but here we go. Are we ready? We're going to give you our star rating, which is different from our content ratings. This is how much we enjoyed the book. This is out of 5 stars. Ready? Yes. 5 stars. Well done, Miss Kemmerer.
Yes.
Okay. Before we get into our review of why we enjoyed it so much, why we gave it 5 stars, let's talk quickly about content ratings and sexual content ratings.
Okay. The content rating is young adults 13 and up. So this book, it's a clean book as far as sexual content goes. You're doing sexual content, so I can't say that. No use
do both.
Use of crude language. There is violence in the book, although not overly graphic in description. People are dying due to illness.
I think the violence was like it was mild, but a little bordering like the upper edge of mild. That's why I think we went with.
Yeah. So there's some torture. But it's not crazy graphic. But people are dying due to illness or they're killed by the king's guards, like that happens, or they're put in prison, beaten, and tortured. So, So
there's reason why we gave it an SC sexual content rating of 1 is really there's no descriptive acts beyond kissing, and even those kisses are pretty innocent. The intimate scenes, which is more like steamy, just like the pining and the angst that you find in young adult, like, I like him, does he like me, do they return the favor, do they return my feelings type of deal. They're very innocent. There is a short scene where a character is wanting another character to believe he is having his way with a girl, aka like he's raping her, but it's not descriptive, it's just alluded to, and it is a role. It's not really happening. There are a few scenes where a male character takes off his shirt and the female character like blushes, like, oh my gosh. And that's kind of all there is really about the sexual content. So it's fairly safe for families to read. Okay.
spoilers?
No,
Are we going to do spoilers now?
there
Or
will,
no? Or are we just going to go?
No spoilers just yet.
Okay, we're going to go into our overall.
Yeah, so you're safe for right now. So, thought the audiobook was done well, right? I like there's dual point of view. I always loved that. I thought the narrators themselves were really great between the female and male narrator. The plots, characters, the twists, the dialogue, the pacing, the romance. I just felt like all of it was
Very well done. Yeah. The character development was very well done in this book. Mm-hmm.
And to me, there really wasn't anything in this book that gave me the ick. Like, I feel like coming off of COVID, right, it could have been something that gave me, like, you know, the ick. It could have been very, like, politically driven or belief driven. Because, you know, it's kind of a similar concept. You have, like, something that is ravaging the whole country.
Yeah, it's killing everybody.
And it has no bias on who's attacked when, but I was a little bit nervous that it might be too similar to like what we experienced with COVID. And I explained previously, I like to read for escape, right? I like to read to be taken away from all the hard stuff and the problems. So I was like, oh, how close is this going to be? It's not. I didn't feel like it didn't give me the ick at all. It didn't make me like relive COVID stuff again, right? It was this virus or disease in this book can't be shared between people. Like it's not, they don't know why it affects this person and not this person. Right. But the people can't give it to each other. Right. So what we see more in this book, right, is like a divide on class, on your wealth. So the wealthier you are, the more readily available the cure is for you, and the poorer you are, that's it. So it's basically kind of like a play on Robin Hood. Not Robin Hood. Yeah, Robin Hood. Yeah.
The author
from the rich to give to the poor.
Yeah, the author did say she drew inspiration from Robin Hood and Zorro when she wrote this. So yeah. So yeah, it's kind of like a Robin Hood. It's got Robin Hood vibes.
Was there anything that gave you like you were like in book one?
No, it was a little slow to start, but that's because of the world building and stuff like that.
Fantasy.
Like fantasy, especially high fantasy. This wasn't high fantasy, so I'm not a fan. Only because
could we really call it fantasy? Was there anything like magical or not?
Well, no, but I mean, that place doesn't exist, and.
I know, but I mean, like, it didn't have anything within its world building.
No, there was no, like, a magic system or anything like that.
Yeah, there was no magic system. So
aside from these petals that were curing people.
There really is such thing as a moonflower.
Yeah.
That's even that. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, but for me, like, when you go into fantasy, there's a lot of world building, so sometimes it's slow to start because the author's building the world. And
plus, it's a series.
Right, and then I start to nod off because I'm bored. I like for there to be
but
action, but I wasn't.
Adult is a little a little bit harder for you to read.
Yeah, a young adult is a little bit harder for me, but I gave this a 5. And that's big for me on a fantasy book. So
yeah, it is.
So yeah,
that's saying something, right?
That's saying something.
Okay, so let's talk about. This is still not spoiler yet. If you like these vibes or buzzwords, keywords, then this would be a book for you. All right, we got second chance romance. We have friends to lovers, enemies to lovers, hidden identity, forgiveness and grace, a Robin Hood retelling, innocent love scenes with nothing more than a kiss, mysterious man in the mask, right? Castles, political intrigue, royal politics, deadly virus with one cure, mind your metal quote, a dual point of view, clean language, swoon-worthy kisses, loyal family, who can you trust, morally gray heroes, and I don't know, do you have anything else you wanted to add? Or do I had a lot there.
You had a lot, like, you got a catalog there.
Yeah, I do. Okay, so from this point on, if you haven't read this book yet, we'll see you next week. But Rebecca and I are going to dive deep into characters, plot, the world building, writing, and the themes and messages of the book. Spoiler. So see you next week. But if you have read it and you want to stay for the discussion, keep on. All right. Who is your favorite character?
Well, okay. I'll just Wes.
Okay.
Wes, who is also Corrick, the Prince Corrick, who's also the King's Justice. liked the morally gray hero character, whatever. I like that a lot. So
that's where I really feel like the dual point of view comes into play, because you really get to understand that he leads these two very different lives, right? Like, he has to be this brutal force to be reckoned with, like this masochist, almost like just psychopath when he deals with his swift punishments, right, for people who want to rebel and what's happening with the kingdom because of what happened. I mean, he witnessed his parents get assassinated. People are always out to get him, and he feels like he has to present this force to protect him and his brother. So in doing that, his punishments are like doled out swiftly, inhumanely, almost like horrid to scare other people. But then on the flip side, he doesn't like that he has to do that, right?
No, he doesn't like that. That's not who he is inside.
Yeah.
He's not, it's, I don't know. It's, normally I don't like the double lives thing. I mean, because you can go anywhere with a double life trope, right?
Yeah.
But, like, I like this for Quark because, and, you know, not everything is black and white. It's just not.
Well, no, not when you're having to deal with, like, your life being threatened all the time in the castle, and, you know, you have no guidance. You were thrown into the role of prince that runs, you know, running the country at, you know, what is he, 15, and his brother was 19.
Yeah.
And they were just thrown into this role. So
and they had to protect themselves, and by protecting themselves, they seemed vicious.
This image.
So that people.
But what we find out, right, is that he's kind of almost like a vigilante, right?
Right.
So it's the people who are like rapists or things that he doesn't feel quite as bad,
right,
punishing them. But then he goes also out with Tessa for years. You know, he saves her life, and then he's saving the lives of
he's handing out moonflowers to people that can't afford it, just so, you know, and food and whatever. I mean, he's
like trying to make up for what he has to present to everybody else.
Because there's also a shortage of moonflowers coming into that realm. So there's some political things going on, but also there's this shortage. So the poorer people don't get a lot. They don't get as much as the richer folks do.
Yeah.
In fact, you find out that they're taking less than what very wealthy people are taking in order to combat this illness.
Right.
So that was just a side note.
I think with her plot, with the Kemmerer's plot, right? So you have lands that are ravaged by a plague, the origins of which are unknown. It does not discriminate. So that's why I mentioned, like, maybe, like, don't worry if you're worried about it being too inspired by, like, the whole COVID thing, because you won't feel like that. There are a few twists that I feel like we agreed that we kind of predicted. But even that couldn't deter away from the 5 stars, because it was still so well done. Like, I knew, like, she read it before I did, and I have texts where I was like, where Wes dies, and I just didn't want to believe it, and I messaged her. I was like, it's correct. Like, it's got to be a royal, and if it's not, I'm going to, like, throw this book across the room and be done with it. Like, I was already so in love with Wes. But I already kind of knew he was a royal. I was pretty sure it was Cork, but I also didn't know if it was Harrison or not at that point. Mm-hmm. So even though we could, like, guess some of the things, you still are along for the journey, and Brigid does such a great job, just, at least in my opinion, bringing you there. So. Yeah,
she did, and she kept you there, like, the whole time, even though she continued to build the world while you're reading the story. Once you got past that initial, I don't know, first 3 chapters maybe, then it was just action from there.
Wes, though. That was all Wes's chapters.
No, I mean, like, I liked that. It was just like I don't know, I want to say, like, maybe it was just 1 chapter. I don't know. Yeah. Nobody died or.
Okay, I will say there was a scene, and I know you're gonna know what this is. So I'm gonna set it up, and I want you to take it away, girl. When she gets to the castle, and she gets so scared by Cork. She does something. Do you remember?
Yes. So Tessa's unaware that Cork is Wes and all that stuff. She thinks that Wes has been hung, brutally murdered for you know, being this
daggers in the eyes
vigil auntie that's trying to help these people, right? So she she has it in her head that she's going to go kill the king or something, so she goes and breaks into the palace, and somehow she gets by all the guards, and she sneaks up to the top, and then she's brought before the king's justice, and oh my god, she finds out it's Korik.
Yeah.
And like, he's trying to keep it under wraps. She's freaking out.
He knows who she is.
Right.
She doesn't know who he is.
And then,
but you all remember what she did. And then it was like
well, I'm gonna
swept under the rug.
I'm gonna tell you. Doesn't he lock her in his room?
No, but she does something.
Oh yes, immediately she wets herself. Like she
pees herself.
She pees herself. She's so scared.
She's so scared. And then when she comes to,
she's in his room.
She's in his bed.
Chained. Like tied up.
Chained, tied up in his room, cleaned up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, are we not going to discuss like that he witnessed her pee herself? And there was just like, I mean, he's got to feel a little bit bad. Like, I wanted him to say something to it, be like, I am horrified that I made you that scared. Like,
I think that
something. That's
yes.
the only problem, issue I could.
Yes, she could have said something. She could have. The author could have alluded to his. Well,
she made a big deal about it in like a scene beforehand, right? She's watching those guys be marched out on stage, and then there's like this whole issue in the crowd. But she watches one of the the people who are about to receive justice from the king's justice, pee himself on a stage for the whole people, everybody to see. And she has these thoughts. How scared must you be to have to do that, to lose control of your body like that? She there's like an inner
dialogue, yeah.
And then it happens to her. No discussion. No discussion. No internal thought. Like, I'm mortified that this happened in front of him. I'm angry that I let him something.
Right.
Anyways, that was the only if I could nitpick on something, that was the only thing that came to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I didn't write anything down, so I don't think that anything really.
No, for me that was.
Usually on a 5, I'm like, no, I loved everything, so we're all good.
Nothing's perfect. Again, I was super nitpicky, but I just felt like that was interesting.
No, it's valid. Because it is. It's valid.
Yeah. What did you think about the world building or the setting? Could you see it? Was it good visual?
Yeah, no. There's not a lot of purple prose in the description, which I liked. The author left. So I like it when the author leaves things up to your imagination, lets you kind of get into the story and kind of come up in your own mind with what's going on. So there wasn't a whole lot of description, which kind of takes me out of not liking fantasy all that much when there's so much description. There was enough to where you get the idea and you can kind of come up with it in your mind.
Rebecca and I always talk about, for us, our preferences. We don't really love purpley prose, super flowery, going on and on, where it almost feels info dumpy. But that is something very, that some people love. It's just, for us, it's not our cup of tea.
No.
But it didn't have it in this book. So if that's what you're looking for, this is not a fantasy book that will have that.
Right.
But it will have it enough to paint a good picture.
Yes. And I did get some Princess Bride vibes, too, from this book.
I did, too.
Yeah. Especially, I kept wanting him to be Wesley, because his name's Wes, so.
It was just so obvious to me a little bit. I don't think it was supposed to be, so secretive that Wes was Korik, because it was he had reddish hair, and Korik has reddish hair, and I was like...
Yeah. And also, how is it when you're just wearing a mask that only goes over your eyes that you can't put things together?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
They didn't have TVs, they don't have phones, they don't have the social media. So if you think back if we're thinking back in that day and age, then right, we're castles, medieval times, whatever. You see portraits usually, and the artist needs you to.
And they're not good.
Well,
everybody's so melancholy and sad.
Look stoic. Yeah. And when you see the King's Justice, it's at a distance.
Right.
So it's I could see for her why.
And even if you were in a crowd, you're looking up at somebody that's maybe on a balcony standing up there.
And again, your brain turns off. That can't possibly be somebody coming with me every night, stealing into the night to help people. That can't that. they're so far removed from each other. They can't be the same person, right?
True.
That was something we got to see Tessa struggle with, was like, I've known you as this person.
Right.
I've known about this person, the rumors. That is a super scary person. But I know you as this loving and kind and fearless, like, defender of people, like, on this end.
Right.
And so it was a great story how she
had to mesh the two together.
Well, she also showed, like what you said, things aren't always black and white, right? There's a lot of gray area. So it's like, and Tessa...
And she needed to learn the why.
Well, Tessa only knew her side, living in the wilds, being poorer. But Corrick knew both.
Perspective.
Yeah. And Corrick lived in the wild. He didn't live in the wilds, but he was in it.
Right.
He would visit every single night. And he's meeting the people, and he's hearing their struggles, and he's going on. And then he also has to lead this other life as a ruler for Kandala.
Right.
And so he got to see both, but she was only privy to one. So it was really great of her character to kind of be open to that. She wasn't just like, oh, okay, you say you're this, I love you. Like,
yes.
we kind of saw her struggle with that. Who do I trust? Can I really trust you?
And I love that this was kind of the overall theme and message of the book, was this whole black and white. I love that it's a young adult book, especially if a child can pull that message out of this book. It's great. Walk a mile in my shoes and you'll make a different decision, right? So it's all perspective, and you don't know what somebody is going through. You have no idea why they do the things that they do and why they're in the situation that they're in until you're there, or until somebody enlightens you, right, about it. So
yeah, so there was a lot of good themes and messages.
Yes.
So you talk about the gray area. So within that, we also learned that people are multifaceted. They don't always just like fit into a mold. Everyone has a backstory. Everyone has things that have happened in their life that have shaped them, right? So it's like, I'm sure you've met people, it's happened to me in life, where people assume you to be one thing, and then they get to know you, and they're like, oh. I didn't know that about you. I would have thought, would have thought this. Or, for example, I suffer with chronic illnesses, and I get a lot of people like, I don't get to go to church every weekend, but sometimes I do, and my husband is leading men's group a lot, and so he has a lot of guys, and a lot of times they pray for me and stuff because they know, like, I had a really hard week this week with tons of migraines, and I was on the couch a lot and just sick. And one of the guys, this was happened a while ago, and he always like, I thought your wife was sick. Like, I thought she was, because I like to still, if I'm feeling good, I can go out and I like to get dressed and put on makeup and feel human again, and all those things. And it's like people look at you like that, and then they assume.
But you have one of those illnesses that you cannot see. Yeah. It's all internal. Yeah. So to look at you, you look fine.
Yeah, even when we first met, you're like, she can't have all those things.
Yeah, right. Is she okay? Is she making this up?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But no.
So, it's kind of one of those things, right? Unless you get into that relationship with that people, it's very easy to make these assumptions based on just kind of what you see. Like, no, the whole don't judge a book by its cover. What I really liked too was the whole idea, desperate people make desperate choices.
Right.
So when you feel threatened, your life is on the line. You're going to respond in a way that might not be who you truly are. And that's kind of what I feel. And then sometimes doing the right thing feels a little bit like breaking the law.
Yes. Or, sometimes sometimes there's injustice, and you feel like you've got to make it right. Yeah. Even if to make it right, you got to maybe do some bad things.
Got to break the law to do the
break
right
the
thing.
law.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Which we've seen time and time again in history.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Well, share your comments with us on your choice of social media. You can find us on all the socials. We are on YouTube. We are on Rumble. You can listen to us on Spotify. You can catch us on our Instagram lives. We go live Tuesday and or Thursday night, so touch base with us. We are on TikTok, and where else? You can find us on our website, blooppodcast.com, and it's our same handle for everything else. All the socials. But we'd love to hear if you read it, what you think. Is it on your TBR? Are you wanting to read it now? And we can't wait to connect with you that way. But tune in next week. We will be doing book 2 in the series, which was a shock to us that there was going to be a book 3.
Right, and there's now going to be a book 3, and we have to wait a whole year to read it.
So book 2 we'll talk about next week is Defend
the Dawn.
So
yes, and check out our website too, so you can see our content ratings.
Oh yeah.
And our sexual content ratings. There's a whole.
Yeah,
we have a whole
all
page.
Of our type reviews.
Yes, and our type reviews are out there, but we also tell you why we rate things in what category. And there's like a whole. We have like a whole system. So
yeah.
go, please check it out.
All right.
Until then.
See you next week.
Bye.